Well, hey everyone, I just finished my 107 exam. I did pretty good. All I cared about was getting 70%. And I got an 87%, which is, I guess, pretty good according to the lady. I wasn't even trying to get 100%. You know, I'm not sure you can get 100% because as much as you study, there are things on the test that are just nothing I read anywhere or any video I saw. And I spent a lot of time studying it. So anyway, I'll be back in a few days and we'll see if I can help you maybe in kind of getting ready for your 107 test. Well, hey everyone, it's been a few days since I took that test. Those earmuffs really messed up my hair. I just watched that introduction and they give you some earmuffs so that others in the room, there were three of us taking a test of some kind at the time. And I guess they don't want you to be disturbed. I think they just don't want you to be able to talk to each other. They weren't mandatory, but I did use them. Anyway, I've watched a lot of videos. Hey, I got my 107 test and I wasn't going to do one. There's so many of them out there. And I doubt if I'll get a lot of watches because my channel is really not about drones. But I do think I might be able to add some perspective and help. I got a lot out of all those videos. I watched at least a dozen of them and I got a little bit about every one. There's a lot of repetition and that's to be expected because sometimes you just got to pound it in your head to get it right. So I'm going to break this up into 3 separate videos so you can only watch the ones that you think have relevance to your current situation. The first one is going to be what I did to prepare for the test, all the resources that I used. I probably overdid it a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The second video is going to be about the test process itself, and I'm going to talk a lot about the questions that I got versus what I thought I was going to get, and kind of give you an idea of the areas that you really want to make sure you understand. The last video is going to be about 3 concepts that as I went through all of these things, I thought the presenters kind of got wrong. It might be 4 or 5 by the time I get done. For example, one of the most popular YouTube videos, in fact, maybe the most popular YouTube video on the test, has a section which he is actually completely wrong on. And it makes sense because everybody I've ever asked about this particular thing is wrong on. So that third video is really critical. If you're getting ready to take the test, but you've done a lot of the prep work, you might want to watch the second one that talks about the test process and kind of what I discovered. I recommend that everybody watch the third video, which will be out in a few days, because I do think that those concepts are going to be important. You are going to get questions on them, and you can get easily confused by them. And I think I have a better way to maybe explain them a little bit. So anyway, let me talk about my preparation process, the resources I used. And if you're just getting started, you might find this helpful. So the first thing I did was I went to the FAA and downloaded the Small Unmanned Aircraft System Study Guide. And I went through it from cover to cover. Very useful, a lot of information, a good place to start because it'll give you an idea of the kind of things you're going to need to know. Now, you'll notice when you get to chapter 1, there's just one sentence. And it says, be familiar with part 107. So I clicked on the link and I actually read through the entire part 107. This is important because this is where all of the basic rules are going to be laid out. How fast you can fly, how high you can fly, all of the rules about drones and unmanned flight. This is the actual law. And everything in part 107 you're expected to follow or you're going to be in violation of federal law. Now, I went back through the rest of the study guide. You'll get a lot of information on all the areas that you need to study on. Airspace, what it is, what kind of airspaces there are, weather, crew management, pilot health, just everything that's going to be covered and you're going to study for the next, week or 2 or however long you're going to put on time, how much time you're going to put in. That study guide will get you the basic understanding of the different concepts that you're going to need to know. Now, the one thing I'll mention is as you study for this, you're going to get a little frustrated because you're going to see a lot of things that I just don't understand why I have to learn this. And I'll be honest, I was the same way. And I still don't know about a few things. So anyway, it'll be a little frustrating, but this is the best place to start is just go through this entire study guide and actually read part 107. So next I watched Tony Northrup's 107 preparation video. Now, the sheer number of watches, this video is well into the 3 million views category. It's been around for about 8 years. That just shows you how pretty thorough it is and how much most people feel it helps, because he's obviously getting recommended. And if you search YouTube, it's the first one you're going to get. I thought it was well done. He's very logical. He basically goes through the overall general concepts, doesn't get into too much detail, but then he gives you example questions related to the subjects. He is especially good, I thought, at explaining the METAR and the TAF. And if you watch his video carefully through that section, the gibberish of a METAR and the gibberish of a TAF, those type of reports, will make a lot more sense. So I thought that was a good place to start. Then I found another video channel. I think his name is Sytes, and he does a 12-part series. Now, it doesn't have as many watches, but it's actually relatively new. And this man can speak so smoothly, and no stutters, no stammers. And the only thing, it gets a little annoying because he keeps saying how great it is that you're able to learn this from him, but in a kind of humorous way. But overall, outstanding presentation and very great information. And I like how he broke it into the 12 segments so you could watch the parts that you felt weak on. He follows that up with a couple of videos about getting ready for the test and 40 questions, which are really helpful to go through those as well. I watched every video that he had on his channel. Now, in between all of these, I did and watched a lot of shorter videos, similar to the one I'm making now. I watched a lot of content, but the next major one I went through is from the Drone Home. It's free FAA Part 107 Drone Test Study Guide, and he takes the full 3DR. I can't find the test anymore, but it was a 120 question test, and he goes through every question one at a time and explains why the answer is the answer. And that was helpful. A lot of times, yeah, you knew the answer, but sometimes you got a little confused, and he was pretty thorough about that. Now, there are a lot of places to buy a study guide. Pilot Institute, I've heard it's really awesome. Several others. They seem kind of pricey, and I really was just trying to get the 70%, and I felt I probably didn't need to do it, but I stumbled across one. They were having a special, and it only cost $37. So I thought I would give it a try. It's from a website called Drone Pro Academy, and they have a study guide called FAA Part 107 Boot Camp. Now, this study guide I like because it's broken up into single individual segments about the 5 main categories, and then within that are short videos about the individual categories. And at the very end of the test, you actually have a practice exam, which is very, very thorough and well done. As you go through all these videos, you're going to run across the same question and answer lots of times because they are sharing resources. But I thought this study guide for the money was a good value. And once I finished it, I was feeling pretty confident. And when I took the test and I got 90% on the practice test, that's when I decided to go ahead and sign up and try for my test. Now, speaking of practice tests, that's the other thing I spent a lot of time doing. I found quite a few practice tests. A lot of them will offer at Pilot Institute, and a lot of them you can take multiple times at 10 questions at a time, and you have to give them your email address every time. But I pretty much tried to take every practice test I could. The one side I felt was the strongest, and maybe the only one I needed, was from a place called King Schools. They have a free FAA Part 107 drone pilot test. And it allows you to set up how many questions you want to answer. It will time it based on the same amount of time you have per question in the real test. It will let you select the categories that you want. So if you just want to focus on one category, and then you run the test, and you can do it over and over and over. And I did them 10 questions at a time. I pretty much just chose all categories every time. I would do 10 at a time. Now, as you do it more and more and more, you'll get some repetition. But overall, you're going to get a very, very, very broad range of questions. This was the most useful practice test site that I found, really extremely helpful. Well, there you go. That's basically what I did. As I mentioned, I think I spent about 20 hours altogether over a period of about 3 weeks. And I did pretty well on the test. Now, I wasn't super focused. It wasn't like I was studying for a college final or anything like that. But these resources seem to be enough to really get me comfortably over the 70% mark. The next video, I'm going to talk about the test itself, and I'll talk a lot about the kind of questions I got. There were a few surprises, a few things. There were more questions regarding certain subjects than I thought there would be, and a few less in some subjects. So that might be helpful to listen to that. I'll talk about some of the ones that I thought were trickier and cover the concepts and about how much weight they seem to put in the different concepts. So until then, see ya.